The general story of Peacehaven is quite well known, but for those of you who don't know it, in a nutshell, a man called Charles Neville is reputed to have been driving in 1914 between Newhaven and Brighton on what is now the A259, and he saw the open, reasonably flat cliff-top downland, which is where Peacehaven now stands. He purchased this land, divided it into the grid system we see today, and sold the plots off in various ways to purchasers who could build their own homes on them in a town he called New Anzac-on-Sea. Fast forward several decades and a legally forced name change later, as well as social and environmental issues, an intervention by the council, compulsory purchases of many plots, and we have the core of Peacehaven as we know it today. If you want to know more about this, with all the scandal, including a possibly bigamous marriage, then I highly recommend Stanley Bernard's books, which I've linked to below. But this video isn't about that Peacehaven. This video is about an area to the east of Peacehaven, which is known as Friars Bay, Cliff Parks Estate, Peacehaven Heights, or Cresta Heights, depending on which map you look at. So, the maps of Peacehaven from around the First World War onwards show the sudden appearance of the town on what had been open downland. They show the roads with their names, and this layout is, in the southern half of the town, ostensibly what we have today. The original estate boundary is still marked by these two pylons, which proudly displayed the town's name to the original pioneers who came down to inspect their plots. Today though, these pylons are several hundred yards west of where the houses start. So why is that? When Peacehaven was founded to great razzmatazz in the press, from what I gather it was actually 3 estates. The 2 we see today at Peacehaven and, to the west, Telscombe Cliffs, and a third area, the area that I'm looking at in this video. Okay, so back to the old maps, and these show streets with grand names such as Outlook Avenue, Blakeney Avenue and Charleston Avenue, all running round Rushy Hill, in many cases overlooking the sea. I have even found this undated town plan showing 2 estates, the Cliff Park Estate to the north of the A259 and Cresta Heights to the south. This is actually the only place I've ever seen the name Cresta Heights. All of these roads exist today, but don't let their grand names trick you. Here is what they look like. Untarmacked roads heading on up the hill, little more than tracks, mostly to small holdings and a caravan site. And many of the roads of the 1920s maps were never actually developed at all, although it appears they may have initially been scraped out of the surface. But when we overlay the old map with a modern satellite photo, it is pretty clear that the original expectations for this area were not met. So I'm now walking up a road called the Lees, or at least it should have been the Lees, and I'll explain what happened. When Charles Neville was setting up Peacehaven, there was already some development to the east in this area, although, from what I can work out, it seems to have been on the north of what is now the A259. We know this land was sold by the Earl of Chichester in 1910, which is 4 years before Charles Neville saw the area, and that it was then sold in several plots, some of many acres, which were intended as small holdings. The main investor here was Arthur Harrison, and this estate, which had a school and a library, actually supplied Charles Neville's Peacehaven with water at one point. Although the estate appears to have not grown to its full potential, at some point roads were actually drawn up on the south side of the main road as well, which is where I'm walking now. Aerial photos show these were clearly scraped out of the soil, but nothing was ever built. Why was that? Well, I'm guessing that by the time the area was likely to be built on, 2 things had happened. Firstly, Peacehaven and Telscombe Cliffs were being sold off piecemeal, plot by plot, mostly for people to build their own homes on. The area around the main road to the east of the town is geologically unstable, having a lot of clay on it. Now this caused major problems for the main road in the 1980s when subsidence was causing it to collapse. It's actually a problem that the council's still battling with now. This probably put people off buying plots in this area, with the ease of building on a nice, flat, well-drained chalk downland plot being much more attractive than a claggy, clay-ridden plot on the side of a hill. And there were plenty of flat, downland ones available. Peacehaven itself was not really taking off to become the garden city by the sea that it was initially advertised to have been, so yeah, there were plenty of plots around. And the second reason? Well, after the Second World War, Peacehaven was in a bit of a state, with water and sewage issues, rutted roads and many plots that had simply been abandoned or never built on at all. In the 50s, the council, which had not really got involved for the previous 40 years, was forced to deal with the problem that Peacehaven had become, concentrating on the main town area and not on this periphery to the east. The building on the edge of the South Downs, though, had not gone unnoticed, and the disorganised way in which the town had developed is said to have been one of the reasons that the Town and Country Planning Act 1947 came into being. No longer could you just purchase land and build an entire town on it, with very little in the way to stop you. So, in the end, the whole Friars Bay area to the south of the main road remained as a collection of scattered housing and small holdings, rather than the continual stretch of roads and avenues that were planned to join Newhaven and Peacehaven into one long strip. The roads with their grand avenue suffix names remain as dirt tracks, or they have simply vanished from history under the gorse and bracken which cover these hilltops. I hope you've enjoyed this Sussex map mystery from Friars Bay. I'm going to be making more Sussex map mystery videos, so follow, like and subscribe, and don't forget to look up Stanley Bernard's books on Peacehaven. They make very interesting reading. I'd like to thank everyone who has helped me with this video, especially the members of the Peacehaven and Telscombe Cliffs History Group on Facebook, who gave me lots of useful information. Finally, I'm not an historian, so I apologise if anything in this video is totally incorrect. I'll leave the experts to what they do best and hope the rest of you gained some knowledge.